Hi folks, in this video I'm going to discuss the concept of using hand path length to increase club head speed, and I'm also going to give you some ideas on how you can use this information at home to improve your hand path length. Just this past spring, April 2020, I published a study called How Amateur Golfers Deliver Energy to the Driver. It was really about understanding how those four factors differ among individuals who have different levels of club head speed. So if one person swings the club at 100 miles per hour, another person swings the club at 120 miles per hour, what is it, which of those four factors is most likely to be the cause for that difference of 20 miles per hour in club head speed? And one important and practical take-home from that research paper was hand path length. So it was a meaningful predictor in determining club head speed across individuals. And one thing that came up in the paper was that a difference in hand path length of about the length of this Sharpie would contribute about 3 miles per hour to club head speed, okay? And that's meaningful, increasing your club head speed by 3 miles per hour. So golfers that had a slightly longer hand path had meaningfully more levels of club head speed. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. And I've got a little PRGR radar here set up. Remember, this is hybrid length, so I'm going to make some swings. And we're going to just see how hand path length can contribute to the speed that I'm moving this at, just to give you some visuals. So I'm going to make some kind of smaller hand path lengths, maybe like a John Rahm or a Tony Finau. I'm going to try to give it the same amount of effort in all these swings. We'll see what the PRGR reads here. So kind of a shorter hand path. So that was 113. Give another one. These aren't pretty swings. I'm purposely trying to make them a bit shorter. That was 116. See if I can make another one. It's a little shorter. That was 117. So maybe a little bit of warm-up, stabilizing a little bit there. So 117 miles per hour. Now what I'm going to do is make a swing where my hand path length increases. So I'm going to give myself more potential, more distance over which to apply that force. That's going to allow me to do more linear work in the club. That's going to change the amount of kinetic energy in the club, which means I'm going to get more club head speed. Okay? So let's see if we can increase the length of that hand path in the downswing. That means I'm going to have to get my hands into a bit of a higher position. I have a little bit more body rotation in the backswing to have a little bit longer hand path. So that was 119 and arguably less effort than the other swings. If I can increase the length of that hand path again. That was 128. Okay, so that longer hand path is giving me more potential to do work on the club. And I think over time, if we have golfers who don't practice at increasing their speed, they only make swings with a golf ball present, they can slowly over time work on getting a shorter and shorter hand path. It does make it more likely if you never practice to make good contact with the ball, you know, little short hand path swings, and eventually these players work themselves in a position where they've got very little lower body movement, and they're probably not turning their torso a whole lot, and they're just bunting this ball down the fairway. So what are some things that we can do to help improve our hand path length? How can we help increase the length of our hand path? So in my experience, one of the better ways to increase hand path length over time is to practice making swings with a slightly heavier object. And that's one of the advantages of having a training aid here like the Stack. I'm going to add on 300 grams. That's going to make it much heavier than my standard driver. But feel free to grab 2 clubs or anything that's going to be weighted more than a typical club. Something that is going to feel like it's pulling you into a backswing position. So I'm going to try to feel like I'm going to make a little bit of a forward swing here. I'm going to try to feel like this club is going to pull me into a longer position. I just want to gradually feel like I'm getting rotation at those important joints in the backswing. For a lot of you at home, you've maybe restricted the movement in your pelvis. So I want to see that pelvis start to face back away from the target. Maybe have that lead heel lift off the ground. I want to see that torso rotate relative to the pelvis. I want to see that upper thoracic region twist so our back's facing the target. And I want to see how much we can get that lead arm coming across our chest. Okay. I don't want to see any extra wrist cock. That's really not going to increase hand path length. So it's okay to be kind of wide at the top. All right, we're trying to get our hands in a really high position, but we don't necessarily have to have the club going past parallel. So I just want to feel, I'm going to let the momentum of this club help pull me into a longer hand path position. Okay, and just feeling that I want to get a little bit deeper at the top of my backswing. And I get those hands a little higher. And the next progression will be to see if you can transition out of that. So we're only focusing on the transition. We're not trying to maximize club head speed here, but I want to feel like, okay, great, I've gotten my hands higher, but now can I still make a coordinated downswing? So I could have a crazy long hand path, but if I've completely maxed out my range of motion in an actual swing, that's going to make it very challenging to have a coordinated transition and therefore see an increase in club head speed. So I don't want to make a longer hand path at the sacrifice of a poorly coordinated downswing. Okay, so now I'm going to see if I can get maybe just not quite as deep as I can max out. I'm going to stop just before, if this is my max position, I'm going to see if I can stop maybe somewhere around here, because I want to feel like I can still rotate my hips relative to my torso, that I can still turn my torso a little bit into that lead arm, okay? That I can still add, and this isn't really related to hand path length, but I want to feel like I can still add a little bit of wrist cock, a tiny bit of wrist cock, a little bit of stretch at the start of the downswing, okay? So I'm going to see if I can still transition. This is only about feeling that I can still transition correctly, okay, with that added hand path length. So I'm not trying to necessarily swing as hard as I can. Just can I use that added hand path length and still transition appropriately? Practice that at home. Hopefully you see an increase in your hand path length and an increase in club head speed.